In this video series, we are going to be looking at the Burp extension Piper. Now, Piper is not a new Burp extension. It has existed in the ecosystem for a number of years now. But for me personally, I had a number of use cases where it was really helpful to be able to use Piper recently. And it really made me realize that this is probably an underutilized Burp extension that really is quite flexible. And there are a lot of extensions that exist in the ecosystem of Burp that you can probably just accomplish with a very simple script using Piper. So I've constructed a series on the tool. In this first video, we're going to look at some really simple use cases, and then in subsequent videos, we're going to look at some more interesting use cases and explore various features of the tool. So first, we obviously have to set up Piper in order to be able to use it well conveniently. It is available in the BAP store within Burp, as you can see here. So you can navigate to your extensions tab, go to the BAP store, install it from there, and then once installed, you get this nice Piper tab where we can configure everything that we want to do with Piper. So what does Piper do? Well, quite simply, it basically takes data from Burp and it pipes it to the command line and then pipes it back into Burp. So you can use command line utilities to integrate with various capabilities within Burp, which makes it very easy to accomplish a large number of tasks. There's effectively infinite flexibility with this tool. Now you can use it in a Linux environment as I am here, or you can actually use it in a Windows environment with WSL or probably some alternative hacky system. But for now, we're going to be using it in these demo videos in Ubuntu, in Linux. So let's get started with a very simple example. We are going to be looking in this video just at message viewers. So these are augmentations to Burp's built-in message viewers. For example, if you're looking at HTTP messages within Repeater or within Proxy, here we're going to be looking at Repeater. And these mechanisms are quite straightforward. They don't let you edit, but they let you view. So you can take data from a request, an HTTP request, or an HTTP response. You can send that to the command line for processing, and then you can get that data back to view it transformed. And as I mentioned, the possibilities are endless. You can do anything. There are some common uses out there that you can find people implementing Piper for. One of those is using a different JSON viewer, for example. So JQ is a command line parser for JSON objects. And so a very simple use of Piper is just implementing JQ in order to pretty print your JSON objects. So let's just look at that configuration really quick. So you can see I have an item in my message viewers here. You can add additional viewers. You can remove them. You can copy and paste them. But we're just going to open the configuration. So I double click on JQ. This is a named message viewer. We could name it really anything, but it makes sense that we call it JQ. In this case, we've set it to apply to responses only. You can set it to be requests and responses or requests. It really depends on your use case. And then we have a filter, which importantly will determine when this message viewer appears. So we don't want our message viewer for JSON objects to appear and to try and parse non-JSON data. So I've sent a very simple filter here that says when, because we're looking at responses, we're looking at only responses. And so when the content type header in that response is equal to application/JSON, this is not going to be a perfect match for a number of reasons, probably the biggest of which being that you might have JSON data returned without the correct content type. So something to keep in mind. But in this case, it's going to capture, I think, most scenarios where we're going to encounter JSON. So when that content type matches, then this message viewer will be applied and it will process our data so that we can actually view it however we want to. You can see in the filter editor here that determines the conditions when this message viewer are applied. It provides a large number of options. We are not going to explore all of those options in this video. We're just going to set a very simple condition on whether that header is present and matches the value application/JSON. As simple as that. And then we're going to look at the command. The command is quite simple. It's just pointing with an absolute path to my JQ binary, and there really is nothing more than that. Now, the editor here, the command editor here, I find it's a little bit weird initially navigating when you get to it. The way that it is intended to work, and I'm going to show you an alternative way to work with it, but the way that it's intended to work is you specify your command, and then on each subsequent line, you're specifying the command options. So if we click add, this could be some other option, right? So I double click it. It wants me to edit it. I say, oh, some option, right? That's what that would look like. I'm not sure what -o does in JQ, so we are actually going to remove that. We're not going to use that. You can also modify this to instead use a positional input where the tool Piper will save a file temporarily and feed that file of your request or response data as input to the command. So we can click set to file name, add input, and it'll do this here. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to use the standard setup for the tool, which is it takes stdin, your standard input, and it pipes it to the command that we've specified. So we're piping the data here. And in this case, by default, what it's going to do is it's just going to take the response body. There is an option here to also pass HTTP headers to the command. So if you want to process the entire request or the entire response, you can select that to pass not just the body of the request or the response, but also the headers. I'm going to leave that unselected for now. And we're also going to ignore, for now, all of these additional filters. So I click OK. And just once again, looking at this command at a high level, or looking rather at the configuration of the message viewer, we have a named message viewer called JQ. It's set to only be usable for HTTP responses, and it'll only apply when the content type matches the regular expression application /JSON. We have this set to enabled, and right now we're not using ANSI color escape sequences. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to go back to repeater, and I'm going to click on this JSON response that I have prepared for us. I'm just going to send this again. One thing to keep in mind, and we might encounter this as I go through some of these videos, there appears to be a caching mechanism. So if you have already used a message viewer on a request or response, and then you change that viewer and you go back to it, it will probably stay the same until you actually send a request again in order to refresh that request and response. Also, importantly, one thing to keep in mind, and this will also come up in subsequent videos, the command I do not think will execute in all cases until, well, for message viewers, until we actually click the tab for that viewer. Now, you'll notice here, there we go, that I had to scroll a little bit to actually see our JQ viewer. Of course, there are some other viewers I have configured here that are for later viewers. I think under the right circumstances, you should get, sometimes the UI is a little wonky in Burp, but you should get this little ellipses. Nope, it's not really working there. There we go. This little arrow actually gives us a drop down when there are message viewers that are beyond the beyond what's immediately visible. So I find that UI to be obviously a little bit inconsistent. So it's one thing to keep in mind, especially if you have a large number of message viewers configured. But okay, we have this. What do we expect? Well, we expect it to send because we have application /JSON in our content type. This is a response. It's going to send this body to our command. Our command is only running JQ, so it should be a very simple output of that JSON object. I click JQ, and look at that. It's exactly what we expect. Obviously, this isn't a very interesting example, especially since Portswigger at one point implemented JSON pretty printing into Burp by default. So if I click the pretty option here, it displays effectively the same thing. Now, it still gives us headers, which if you're doing security testing, you do want to see those headers, but maybe there are situations where you want to hide those for convenience. So that's one reason you might use this JQ viewer instead of the default pretty print. The other thing that I mentioned before that you might get JSON objects returned in responses where those responses are not correctly indicating the content type, or for some other reason the standard content type parsing is not working. That will mess up Burp's pretty print. I've seen many cases where JSON objects are returned, and unfortunately, for whatever conditional Burp's pretty print for JSON is using, it's not picking up the JSON. So you could implement a custom message viewer and make sure you match that condition with a filter on the message viewer so that you can pretty print the JSON data in that case. So that might be a use case for it. Of course, you can also go further. You can use the parsing options available through JQ to select certain items. Now, probably if you're doing this, if you're doing a lot of manipulation of the structure of JSON or other data in your requests and responses, you're probably going to be doing that process iteratively. So it's going to be very time consuming if you are, running a request here and then you're going back to the Piper tab, you're going back to reconfigure this. Keep in mind, let me show you this delay here. Like I double click this and I wait and then it opens. It's a little bit slow. It's not very responsive. So I have to go back here and then I also have to click this command and I have to go and add additional command line options in order to be able to modify that command and that processing. And then I have to go all the way back to Repeater and send that request again to get that to refresh in order to see my modifications and decide whether I want to iterate on that object. That's not a very efficient workflow if you're trying to refine some filtering because you want to just look at something very specific in a large JSON object. So I'm going to show you a much better way to actually do this. And you may have already guessed it. If you're looking at the left side of my monitor here, where I have a file folder open with a number of bash scripts. So you can see that I also have a JQ demo message viewer, which we're going to open now. And this one is absolutely the same with one key difference. And that difference is that I'm no longer specifying the JQ command itself. I'm specifying this jq.sh shell script that is in my folder here that you can see right here. And if I open this, which actually it's already open, so I can just open this document here, this line is commented out. We're going to come back to this in a moment. But you can see right now, it just has a simple JQ in there. So it's effectively, presently, the exact same as the other command. Actually, I'm going to uncheck the ANSI color escape sequences right now. That was one difference. We'll come back to that in a moment. And just to confirm that this is all that's in the command here, I'm just going to show that. So here we have it right here, right? I'm going to click OK here. OK, great. So if I go back to Repeater now, and we're just looking at this JSON response again, and I click on JQ demo, look at that. It gives us the exact same thing as JQ, but there's one very important difference. If we want to make modifications to our command, we no longer need to go through that long workflow in modifying the Piper configuration. We just have this script that we can modify. Now, I don't know many JQ command line options, so I can't show you a very quick change, unfortunately, but we could change this. Maybe I'll just change it to something. I'll give it a -T. I have no idea if that's anything valid. And you'll see over here, if I come back into Burp, even if I navigate to a different viewer and come back, we get the same output we had before. That's because, as I mentioned, remember that's cached. So even though we've updated our script, we do need to send a request again in order to get output. And you see that whatever the -T option is, it broke it. But it shows you, nevertheless, that we can very quickly update and iterate on our command in order to modify our processing of data from requests and responses. So I'm going to revert this. I'm going to save it. I'll click request again, and look at that. We fixed it. We're back to just running the JQ command. But of course, you can do so much more with this, and I will show you one interesting feature that is built in. So I'm going to actually comment off this JQ, and obviously you probably saw this coming. I'm going to uncomment this line that follows. This line just breaks out the object into a different form, and it adds ANSI color escape sequences to it. It's quite simple. Now, this actually does require a change in our Piper configuration, unfortunately, because you probably saw that I unchecked before, uses ANSI color escape sequences. Well, now I'm going to check that again, click OK. I'm not changing anything else because my command is captured entirely within this script file. And I'm going to go back to Repeater, and we are going to go all the way back to my JQ demo. And interestingly, it looks like it didn't rerun the script, but it did apply the color support. I'm not really sure how that works exactly. But if we send this now, we should get the additional coloring, and in fact, we don't. So what has gone wrong here? Uh-oh. My demo has failed me. Hold on here. Having trouble clicking it. Let's go back and check our Piper configuration. A double click, of course, that is good. It is enabled. It is set to use the sequences. Oh, did I not save this? That's on me. I did not save this. Okay, so back to JQ demo, and look at that. There we go. So we get a little bit of a structure change, and we get some nice coloring, which I'll be honest with you, in practice, I've never taken the time to implement support for coloring for anything within Burp using Piper, but it's a feature that it supports, and certainly there are tools that you might use that support it by default, so you might want to just make use of that within Burp, which is kind of interesting. For me, I haven't found it that helpful, but I thought I would share it. And so that's message viewers. And this is just a couple of very simple examples. I really wanted to highlight, again, using bash scripts. One thing I didn't note that you'll have to do is you'll have to make those executable. And I would definitely recommend setting them up like I do, which is specifying their absolute path that I've done here so that they can be found by the tool. And I think otherwise, starting off like this is very straightforward. And really, the complexity is up to you in terms of what you need to accomplish, what you want to do. You can involve other scripts and tools. You can chain multiple tools. You can do all kinds of things. The flexibility is unlimited, as I mentioned. And we are going to explore some of that in subsequent videos, looking at not just the other capabilities of Piper, of course, all these other tabs you have here, but also looking at some very interesting applications of it, and ones that, as far as I can see, haven't been implemented before. So I hope you check those out too.